Perched high above the historic streets of Old Quebec, the Grand Chateau Frontenac has stood since 1893, a symbol of luxury, history, and grandeur. Yet beneath the opulence, it hides a chilling secret: the lingering presence of a 17th century ghost. The restless spirit is believed to be none other than Louis Dubois, the former governor of New France, who tragically lost his fiancée and, according to legend, never found peace in the afterlife. Guests who walk through the hotel's magnificent corridors report unsettling experiences. Some have felt an icy breeze sweep past them in the height of summer, while others have spotted strange shadows flickering across the walls, even in well-lit rooms. There are mirrors that seem to reflect figures that vanish the moment you turn around. The eerie atmosphere becomes palpable for those who dare to stay overnight. A frequent report is that of waking in the dead of night, feeling the sensation of being watched, only to discover a shadowy figure standing at the foot of the bed. One guest vividly recounted seeing a man dressed in an old-fashioned military uniform, silently pacing through her room before vanishing into thin air. What makes these encounters even more spine-chilling is that the hotel staff, while courteous, offer no explanations but don't deny the paranormal activity. So, if you ever find yourself staying at the majestic Chateau Frontenac, remember you might not be as alone as you think, even within the privacy of your room. Just outside the bustling city of Niagara Falls lies a small, seemingly ordinary tunnel, but locals will warn you this is no place to be after dark. Known as the Screaming Tunnel, this place carries a haunting legend that has frightened generations. According to the tale, years ago, a young girl, engulfed in flames, desperately ran through the tunnel, hoping to save herself, only to perish tragically at the entrance. Her anguished screams, they say, can still be heard echoing through the tunnel on windy nights. For those brave enough to visit after sunset, eerie reports abound. Strike a match inside the tunnel, and it will mysteriously extinguish, followed by the distant, heart-wrenching cries of a girl in pain. Some have even seen flickering lights at the far end of the tunnel, only for them to vanish upon approach. The air grows heavy with an oppressive sense of dread, and many who enter feel an unshakable urge to leave. Even in daylight, the tunnel holds an unnatural silence, as if the very air itself is waiting for nightfall when the ghostly cries of the girl will once again echo, forever seeking help that will never come. Deep within the dense forests of New Brunswick, the Dungarvan River flows quietly, its serene surface masking a darker, more sinister reality. Locals whisper tales of the Dungarvan Whooper, a spectral figure tied to the violent death of a young logger whose murder was covered up by his camp's cook. The logger's anguished cries for justice, they say, still echo through the woods, terrifying those who venture too close. The story goes that after the logger was killed, his body was buried in secret, and the camp cook mysteriously disappeared. But soon after, blood-curdling screams began to erupt from the forest, sending chills down the spines of those nearby. The screams were so loud and sudden that the remaining loggers quickly abandoned the camp, leaving it to the forest and its ghostly inhabitant. Even today, people hiking near the Dungarvan River report hearing these same haunting cries, which seem to rise from the trees, growing louder as night falls. Those who dare to venture closer claim to see shadowy figures darting between the trees, and some have felt a pair of unseen eyes watching them. The air grows thick with tension, as if the forest itself is crying out in anguish. Locals believe that the logger's spirit will continue to scream, restless and tormented, until justice is served, warning anyone who dares to approach that the past is never truly buried. In the heart of Victoria, British Columbia, the elegant Empress Hotel rises proudly, its historic facade concealing a hidden world of ghosts. Built in 1908, this luxurious hotel is home to more than just its wealthy guests. It's also said to be a haven for spirits who refuse to leave. One of the most famous apparitions is that of an elderly woman dressed in a robe and pajamas, who is often seen wandering the hallways in confusion. She appears as though searching for something, but the moment anyone approaches her, she vanishes into thin air. It's believed that she was a long-term resident of the hotel who passed away, unable to find her way out even in death. Another ghost frequently seen at the Empress is that of the hotel's original architect, Francis Rattenbury, who was murdered in 1935. Guests have reported spotting him in the lobby, admiring his creation or pacing, lost in thought, as if still fine-tuning the hotel's design. The whispers of disembodied voices are commonly heard in empty rooms, and elevators are said to stop on floors that no one has requested. Those who have stayed overnight often report feeling a cold gust of air, even when there is no draft. The Empress Hotel is a place where luxury and the paranormal blend seamlessly. While you may come for comfort, don't be surprised if you find yourself sharing your room with an unseen guest who has no intention of checking out. Off the shores of Toronto lies one of the city's most infamous haunted locations, the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. Built in 1808, it's the oldest lighthouse on the Great Lakes, and its haunting tale has persisted for over 2 centuries. The story begins in 1815, when the lighthouse's first keeper, John Paul Rattlemuller, met a tragic end. It is said that 2 soldiers murdered Rattlemuller in a dispute over bootlegged alcohol. They dismembered his body and scattered his remains around the lighthouse grounds. Though parts of his body were discovered, it's believed that his spirit remains, forever haunting the area in search of peace. Visitors to the lighthouse have reported seeing strange lights glowing around the structure at night, hearing faint whispers on the wind, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps trailing them, though no one is there. Some have even seen Rattlemuller's ghost, dressed in his lighthouse keeper attire, standing by the shore and gazing out at the water before vanishing. Though the lighthouse has long been decommissioned, its paranormal activity remains strong, and those who visit after dark are often greeted by an oppressive presence. It feels as though the ghost of the lighthouse keeper is watching, still guarding the shore where he met his untimely death. Victoria, British Columbia, is renowned for its rich maritime history, but the Maritime Museum of British Columbia, located next to the Empress Hotel, also holds unsettling secrets. Originally a courthouse and jail, the building has a dark past filled with stories of unsolved murders and public hangings. It's no wonder many believe the souls of those wronged still haunt the museum's halls. One of the most famous hauntings is that of Sir Matthew Bailey Beckett, also known as the Hanging Judge, who was responsible for sentencing many to death. It is said his ghost now wanders the museum, watching over the old courtroom where he once presided. Staff members have reported seeing his ghostly figure dressed in traditional robes walking the upper floors before vanishing into thin air. Another commonly reported ghost is that of a sailor who was wrongfully executed. Visitors have claimed to hear the soft creaking of old wooden ships and the faint sound of a man's voice calling out from the exhibits, even though no one is there. Some say the sailor's spirit remains in search of the justice he never received. The museum's eerie energy is palpable, especially in the old jail cells where prisoners awaited their fates. Cold spots, unexplained noises, and the feeling of being watched are common experiences for visitors and staff alike. If you ever visit the Maritime Museum, be sure to keep an eye out. You might catch a glimpse of those who remain forever bound to its dark past. Next, we travel to the outskirts of Kamloops, British Columbia, to a place that has become the stuff of nightmares, the Tranquilli Sanatorium. Built in 1907, this institution initially served as a tuberculosis hospital before becoming a mental asylum. Its history is filled with stories of neglect, suffering, and death, making it no surprise that it is considered one of the most haunted places in Canada. After its closure in the 1980s, Tranquilli Sanatorium was abandoned, left to decay, and become a playground for paranormal investigators. Visitors report hearing the unsettling sound of children's laughter echoing through the empty halls, even though the buildings have been vacant for decades. Shadowy figures are often seen darting through the windows, and some brave souls have claimed to see the spirits of former patients wandering the grounds. The underground tunnels that connect the various buildings are especially notorious for paranormal activity. Those who venture into the tunnels speak of disembodied voices, sudden drops in temperature, and the feeling of something brushing against them in the dark. Many believe these tunnels were once used to transport the bodies of patients who didn't survive, leaving their spirits trapped in the cold, damp passages. One of the most chilling experiences reported by visitors is the sound of screams, sudden and piercing, as if someone is reliving the trauma of their final moments. It's said that the sanatorium's troubled history has left a permanent scar on the land, and those who died there remain trapped in their suffering. If you're thinking of exploring Tranquilli Sanatorium, be prepared. You might encounter more than just the echoes of the past. In the heart of Toronto lies a restaurant that was once a grand home, the Keg Mansion. Originally built in 1867, the mansion was home to the Massey family, one of Canada's most prominent families at the time. Despite its luxurious past, the Keg Mansion is now known for something much darker: its ghosts. The most famous story involves a loyal servant of the Massey family. After the death of Mrs. Massey, it is said that one of her maids was so grief-stricken that she took her own life. The story goes that the maid hanged herself from the balcony above the grand staircase, and her spirit still lingers in the houses today. Staff and diners alike have reported seeing the figure of a woman hanging from the ceiling, swaying gently before vanishing into thin air. Another frequently reported phenomenon is the sound of children's laughter coming from the second-floor rooms. Guests have described hearing footsteps and giggling, but when they go to investigate, the rooms are empty. Some believe these are the spirits of children who once lived in the mansion, forever playing in the halls of their childhood home. The Keg Mansion's eerie atmosphere is hard to ignore, especially at night, when shadows seem to stretch a little longer, and every creak of the floorboard sends a shiver down your spine. It's a place where history and hauntings collide, and if you ever visit, you might find yourself looking over your shoulder, wondering if you're truly alone. Our final stop is one of the most famous haunted places in all of Canada, the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel in Alberta, often referred to as the Castle in the Rockies. This luxurious hotel has been welcoming guests since 1888, but beneath its breathtaking beauty lies a series of ghost stories that have chilled visitors for over a century. One of the most famous spirits is that of the Ghost Bride. According to legend, a young bride died on the day of her wedding after falling down the grand staircase. Some say she tripped over the hem of her wedding dress. Others claim she saw something that startled her. Whatever the cause, her spirit is said to still wander the halls of the hotel, forever dressed in her wedding gown. Guests have reported seeing her dancing in the ballroom or standing on the staircase where she met her tragic end, her veil trailing behind her. But the Ghost Bride isn't the only spirit said to haunt Banff Springs. There's also the tale of Sam Macaulay, a beloved former bellman who worked at the hotel in the 1960s and 70s. Even after his death, Sam is said to continue his duties, helping guests with their luggage. Those who encounter Sam describe him as an older man in a bellman's uniform who suddenly vanishes after assisting them. The hotel's most sinister ghost story, however, involves room 873. Legend has it that a family was murdered in this room, and the room was bricked up after guests reported terrifying paranormal activity. Visitors claim to have seen bloody handprints on the walls, heard disembodied voices, and experienced the overwhelming sensation of dread when walking past the blocked-off room. The Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel may be a luxurious getaway, but for those who've encountered its ghosts, it's an experience they'll never forget. If you ever stay here, be prepared for more than just breathtaking mountain views. You might come face to face with one of the hotel's many lingering spirits. From the chilling cries of the Dungarvan Whooper to the tragic ghost bride of Banff Springs, Canada is filled with locations where the past refuses to stay buried. Each of these haunted places offers a unique glimpse into the lives and untimely deaths of those who once walked among us. If you've ever visited one of these places or live near any haunted spots, we'd love to hear your stories. Share your paranormal experiences with us, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with all things spooky. The next time you visit a historic site, remember you might not be alone.